Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looking right at the weakness here, the current material operates a bit like a laundry list.
It really does, yeah.
It jumps so rapidly between these micro issues, like the missing color wheels and the delayed pools and ghosts, and then it goes straight to macro issues, like the console version differences.
Oh, right. And the massive DLC costs.
Exactly.
And then, it goes right back to specific omitted features like the skin tone slider.
Which just completely dilutes the overall impact.
Right. It makes the argument feel scattered rather than like a really focused indictment.
So how do we actually fix that?
Well, the suggestion is to restructure the material into maybe 2 or 3 distinct thematic pillars. Build a compounding case where one category of issues naturally sets the stage for the next one.
Okay. So moving from foundational game mechanics to the broader financial ecosystem.
Yeah, exactly. For example, as a concrete way to do this, the author could create a core mechanics regression section that groups the lack of open worlds, the missing cars, and the delayed toddlers all together.
Right. Establishing the baseline issues first.
Then create a separate, aggressive monetization section that focuses purely on the financial aspects, like that staggering $750 total cost for DLCs.
Oh, wow, yeah. Or the practice of selling DLC for DLC, like selling those hamster stuff packs that actually require you to own the Cats and Dogs expansion first.
Yes, exactly. That is such a huge point.
Let's look closely at the section discussing the missing core mechanics. Reading through it, it feels like standing in a house with a leaky roof, where we're pointing out every individual drop of water on the floor.
That is a great way to put it.
Right, but wouldn't organizing the piece by the cause of the leaks, like the actual structural holes, hit the listeners so much harder?
That's clearly laid out. I wonder, though, if we've considered how thematic grouping also prevents the audience from feeling overwhelmed by isolated facts.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, because when you group them by cause, it tells a story rather than just bombarding them with data.
Right. And grouping these themes together naturally reveals that many of these issues stem from a shared root cause, which brings us to how we can deepen the core argument itself.
Exact. Because exploring the underlying industry shifts driving these development choices provides a much more compelling narrative than simply highlighting the missing features themselves.
Because just saying, a major publisher is releasing unfinished games and overcharging for DLC is a pretty well-worn sentiment in the gaming community.
Right, the whole EA is greedy angle. While it is factually supported in the text, stopping at they are taking advantage of gamers leaves the argument feeling a bit surface level.
It points out the bad behavior, but it totally misses the why.
Exactly. So the suggestion here is to elevate the critique by contextualizing The Sims 4 within broader gaming industry trends. Shift the angle from a pure consumer complaint to an analysis of the live service era.
Okay, I like that. What would be a concrete example of that shift?
Well, instead of just noting that the Star Wars Journey to Batuu pack ignored the community poll.
Which fans were furious about, yeah.
Right, but instead of just complaining about that, the author could discuss how brand synergy and crossover IP models are replacing community-led development entirely.
Oh, I see.
Or they could contrast the older, feature-complete expansion pack era of The Sims 2 and 3 with today's piecemeal microtransaction model, making the case that EA's choices aren't just lazy, but they're calculated financial strategy.
I can see what you're going for here. Let's see how we can strengthen this. Is there a risk, though, that zooming out to macroeconomics might alienate the audience?
How do you mean?
Well, how does the writer balance that high-level industry analysis while keeping the emotional core of a frustrated, betrayed longtime fan intact?
That makes sense, but could the evidence also support a different conclusion? Like the idea that framing the industry analysis through the lens of a dedicated player's wasted time actually heightens the emotional stakes?
Oh, interesting. So it validates their frustration?
Exactly. When the audience understands that the game was systematically dismantled for a corporate financial model, that sense of betrayal is totally justified and even magnified.
Yeah, maintaining that emotional core is vital, especially when navigating the intense passion of this fan base, which actually leads directly to how the material addresses the audience's own behavior, integrating the discussion of community toxicity as a direct symptom of the game's developmental shortcomings will create a more cohesive and persuasive narrative.
This part is so crucial, because right now, a major weakness is that the text abruptly shifts from criticizing EA to scolding the community for ripping each other apart on Twitter over different opinions.
Yeah, it really is a jarring tone shift.
It pivots from an objective teardown of a video game to just lecturing the audience on their manners. It makes it feel like two separate essays stapled together.
Right, so the suggestion is rather than treating the community infighting as an isolated issue of bad etiquette, reframe the toxic environment as an inevitable byproduct of EA's monetization model.
Make EA the root cause of the community's fractured state.
Exactly. For example, the author could argue that when players are forced to spend hundreds of dollars on incomplete content, buyer's remorse breeds severe defensiveness online.
Yes, absolutely. Like the anger over the 16-hour silence regarding the skin tone updates.
Right.
That isn't just Twitter drama. It's a boiling point for consumers who feel financially trapped in an ecosystem that doesn't respect them.
Which is so true. People naturally want to defend their purchases. It's basically the psychological concept of the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, they don't want to admit they wasted their money.
But how can the writer gently introduce the psychological angle without sounding accusatory or dismissive of the players who actually enjoy the new DLCs?
Building on that point, what if we looked at it from the perspective of shifting the blame entirely onto the corporate structure itself?
So taking the heat off the players entirely?
Exactly. Shifting the blame validates the players' feelings. It removes the sting of the critique on the community, making it clear that they are reacting naturally to an inherently hostile monetization ecosystem.
That is a phenomenal way to handle it. All right, to quickly recap the main points of this critique for the author. First, structuring the grievances into thematic pillars.
Right, moving from foundational mechanics to aggressive monetization.
Second, deepening the analysis by exploring industry-wide live service trends.
Contextualizing those issues within the broader market.
And third, reframing the community toxicity as a direct result of the game's aggressive monetization.
Putting the blame back on EA, where it belongs.
Exactly. So for actionable suggestions, we recommend organizing the script into those distinct structural categories, framing omissions like the Batu pack around crossover IP trends, and rewriting the community section to focus on buyer's remorse and the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah, those changes will make a massive difference.
We warmly invite the listener to implement these structural and thematic changes and submit their work back in for another round of feedback.